I should have known something was off the first time she called me threatened. It wasn't even a fight, just a comment, dropped like it didn't mean anything. But the way she said it, like I was pathetic for even asking the question. Quick note, before we get into it, tell us what city or country you're watching from. My name's Nate. I'm 38 years old. I live just outside Bloomington, Indiana, and I run a mechanic shop I built from the ground up. I met Mallory in early summer of UO7 at a bonfire thrown by a buddy of mine. She was loud in a way that caught your attention. Smart-ass kinda loud. Not annoying, funny, quick. That spark in her made me laugh harder than I had in years. I'd just gotten out of a garbage relationship, so I wasn't looking for anything serious. But she didn't play games, and I liked that. We started slow, drinks on Thursdays, hiking trips on weekends. Her work was buttoned up. Finance, some regional bank downtown. Meanwhile, I spent half my time with grease under my nails and a busted knuckle or two. Didn't matter, we clicked. Got married 2 years later in her aunt's backyard. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs, cheap beer, a Bluetooth speaker blasting country love songs. We didn't care. It felt right. First few years were smooth as hell. We didn't argue about much. We laughed a lot. No kids. That was a mutual decision. We bought a little ranch house 20 minutes outside of town and settled in. It was small, had ugly brown carpet, and I loved the hell out of it. I thought I had the rest of my life figured out. That started changing the day Landon came back to town. Mallory called him her best friend from college, said he was like a brother, claimed they used to pull all-nighters studying and crash on each other's couches. She brought him up like it was no big deal, just someone who knew her from before. I met him once. Polite enough, nice smile, firm handshake. Nothing I could point at exactly, but something about the way she lit up around him stuck with me. First it was drinks, then dinners, then late-night phone calls about how he was going through a tough time. She swore I was imagining things, that I didn't understand how deep friendships worked. Said I'd gotten distant lately, cold. She even dropped this line that still hits me. You act like I'm not allowed to talk to people unless it's you. That's when I knew I wasn't the only one in this marriage anymore. She turned her back to me that night and laughed at one of his texts while I stood in the hallway, keys still in my hand, wondering how I'd become the third wheel in my own house. The next week, I came home early from work. Shop closed up after a slow Thursday, and I pulled into the driveway expecting quiet. Maybe dinner, maybe her on the couch watching some true crime crap she liked. Instead, I saw Landon, sitting on my porch, shoes off, feet up on the table, drinking my beer, not a beer, my beer, the last one from the fridge. He gave me this relaxed nod like we were old buddies just catching up, like I wasn't the guy paying the mortgage he was now lounging under. I parked the truck and walked up slow, trying to keep my face neutral. He stood up finally, like that made it better. Hey man, he said, holding up the bottle like a peace offering. Didn't think you'd be home yet. No apology, no explanation. Mallory walked out a second later, laughing at something he'd just said. Something about a trip they took in college. Some inside joke I'd never heard in 10 years of knowing her. Oh my God, remember the raccoon in the cooler? She said, smacking his arm. He doubled over. Dude, we almost died. I stood there holding a bag of groceries. Bread, eggs, some frozen chicken, while the two of them cracked up like I was invisible. I finally cut in. Mallory, can I talk to you inside? She blinked like I'd interrupted something sacred. Sure. Inside, I set the groceries down harder than I meant to. You gave him a key? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Since when? She looked at me like I was the problem. It's not a big deal. You didn't even ask me. It's just in case. He was locked out of his car last week. I figured it'd be easier. Easier for who? She folded her arms. God, Nate. You act like I invited a stranger to move in. No, I act like I live here, which I do. And I'd like a heads up before some other guy starts camping out on my porch. Other guy? She repeated, voice sharp. You mean Landon, my best friend? You really need to let this jealousy thing go. I took a breath. Can we just set some limits? I'm not saying he can't be around, just a heads up. And maybe he doesn't need a key to our house. She turned cold right then. The temperature in the room dropped. This is what emotional control looks like, she said, dead serious. You're trying to isolate me. You don't want me to have people in my life unless they fit into your little comfort zone. That's not... You're shutting down, Nate. I've tried to talk to you for months. But you brush me off, You bury yourself in that shop. And when I find someone I can actually talk to, you freak out. I stared at her, stunned. So I'm the bad guy here. I didn't say that, she said, tone clipped. But if the shoe fits. She walked out of the kitchen and right back onto the porch with him. Like I was the one who needed to cool off. Like the conversation hadn't even happened. I stood there gripping the counter, wondering what the hell just happened. How did asking for basic respect turn into me being emotionally unavailable? I could hear them outside, laughing again. The same laugh I used to get, back before she started turning to him for everything. I didn't sleep much that night. She came to bed late, smelling like wine, humming under her breath like everything was fine. Looking back, that was the moment I should have laid it down. Should have drawn the line in Sharpie and said, "This stops now," but I didn't. I let her spin it, let her call me insecure, controlling, paranoid, and I swallowed it like it was true. I woke up the next morning pissed at myself for letting things slide, but I shoved it down and kept moving. That's what I always did. Fix the cars, fix the house, fix the problems. I figured maybe our anniversary would reset things. Maybe she'd remember we were still supposed to be a team. So I booked the steakhouse she loved, the one downtown with the dim lighting and overpriced sides. I even got her the necklace she pointed out months back while we were walking through the mall, a little silver thing shaped like a teardrop. She said it was pretty but impractical. I bought it anyway. On the drive there, she barely talked. She scrolled her phone, smirking at whatever she was reading. I tried to ignore it, told myself she was decompressing from work. Inside the restaurant, candles flickered along the walls. I pulled her chair out for her, like I always did. She thanked me without looking up. The waiter brought drinks. We ordered. For a few minutes, it felt almost normal. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Her face warmed. That soft smile, the one she used to give me, slid right onto her lips. Landon, another buzz, then another. She typed fast, thumbs flying, little breathy laughs slipping out. I kept cutting into my steak like nothing was happening, but my jaw had gone tight. "You want to put the phone away?" I finally asked. "Just for tonight?" She didn't even look guilty, just annoyed. "I'm handling something, it's work." "That's not a work face," I said. "You're smiling at every message." She set the phone down like she was planting a flag. "You're trying to control how I communicate. This is exactly what I mean. You want me boxed in. I want my wife to look at me on our anniversary dinner." I shot back. She rolled her eyes. "God, Nate, you're making drama out of nothing." After that, the room went cold. She ate in silence, eyes drifting everywhere but toward me. Not one question about my day. Not one memory about our wedding. Nothing. When dessert menus came, she waved them off and said she was tired. No card, no gift. Not even a damn happy anniversary. Walking out to the truck, she hugged her coat tight and stayed 3 steps ahead of me. Felt like I was chauffeuring a stranger. On the drive home, she stared out the window while the screen on her phone lit up over and over. She didn't answer the texts, but she didn't silence them either, almost like she wanted me to hear every buzz. I dropped her off at the door and parked the truck. When I walked inside, she was already in the bedroom changing. She didn't wait for me, didn't ask where I put her gift. She didn't even look at the box sitting on the dresser. 10 minutes later, she climbed into bed, turned her back, and pulled out her phone again. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to slow my breathing. Maybe she'd put it down. Maybe she'd roll toward me. Maybe she'd remember 8 years meant something. Her phone lit her face blue in the dark. Then she chuckled. Soft, warm, the kind of laugh you give someone you feel close to. I turned my head. There she was. Mallory, my wife, smiling at her screen like she was sharing a bed with someone else entirely. I whispered, "Who is that?" She didn't answer. She just kept scrolling like I wasn't even in the room. That was the moment the truth hit me in the gut. I wasn't her partner anymore. I wasn't even her backup plan. I was her roommate. And worse, the one paying half the mortgage. She shifted, got comfortable, and typed out another message, her thumb moving quick. I got out of bed, grabbed my wallet off the dresser, and walked out of the bedroom and didn't go back in there. Slept on the couch with the TV off, staring at the ceiling until morning light spilled across the floor. I didn't ask her about the phone. She didn't ask why I wasn't beside her when she woke up. We just moved around each other like two people waiting for the other to blink first. About a month later, my laptop died right in the middle of writing up a client estimate. The screen went black, fans sputtered, and the whole thing shut down like it had finally given up. Mallory wasn't home. She was grabbing drinks with coworkers, which I already knew meant Landon. So I walked into her office and fired up her laptop like I'd done before. She'd always told me I could use it whenever. No problem. I typed in her password, same one she'd had for years, and started digging for the folder where we kept shared budget stuff. Her desktop was cluttered, messy, dozens of icons everywhere, half of them with names I didn't recognize. Then I saw it, a folder labeled private. My stomach tightened. That word had weight to it. She didn't do subtle hiding, she did careless hiding. This wasn't careless. I told myself it was probably a journal or some financial document, something boring, something that would make me feel stupid for hesitating. But curiosity grabbed me by the throat, and I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. The folder opened. First file. A selfie of Mallory and Landon in some restaurant I'd never seen. Her leaning in close, his arm halfway around the back of her chair. She looked younger in that picture, happier than she'd looked in months. Next file, another selfie, this time outside at some kind of street fair. They were holding corn dogs and laughing. Her hand was on his chest. My pulse spiked. I clicked again. Another photo, and another, them at a winery, them in his truck, them hiking somewhere that definitely wasn't local. Then the screenshots. That's when my whole body went cold. These weren't normal messages. They weren't even harmless flirting. These were emotional confessions, raw, open pages of their little secret world. The first one I read was from Mallory. If I'd met you first, my life would be different. My heart thudded so hard I felt it in my teeth. I clicked the next one. His reply, maybe it still can be. I whispered, are you kidding me? Like someone else was in the room. More messages. Dozens. Long threads with time stamps stretching past midnight. The hours she used to talk to me about her day. Now she spent them feeding some emotional fantasy with a guy she swore was like a brother. Another screenshot. I hate hiding, she wrote, but it's not the right time yet. Not the right time for what? To leave me? To blow up 2 marriages? Another one from him. I wish I could tell people about us, but we'd hurt too many. I felt something in my chest tear sideways. A kind of quiet ripping that didn't make a sound, but damn sure left a mark. Then I saw the receipts. She bought him concert tickets. 2 seats way nicer than anything she and I ever splurged on. She bought him a watch that cost around $300. A model I recognized because I'd once told her it was too pricey for us to justify. And then the one that hit hardest, a receipt for a cabin rental up north. A weekend she'd told me was work travel for a conference. The dates matched exactly. She hadn't gone with coworkers. She'd gone with him. The room started to tilt. I put both hands on the desk just to stay grounded. I wasn't angry yet, not in the loud, yelling way. This was a different kind of anger, a quiet, steady burn that made everything sharper, clearer. I kept scrolling, even though every part of me screamed to stop. But I needed the truth, needed to see how deep the hole went. More screenshots. Her, I love how you understand me better than anyone. Him, you're the safest place I have. Her again. Sometimes I think about running away for a while. Him, say when. A sick heat crawled up my neck. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was betrayal, carved out line by line. The last screenshot in the folder was a selfie of them sitting in a car at night, her head on his shoulder, his hand on her knee. The caption read, hiding out again. I shoved away from the desk so fast the chair rolled into the wall. I paced the office, breathing hard, palms sweating. Part of me wanted to punch a hole through something. Part of me wanted to drive straight to wherever they were and drag the truth out right there in the open. Then her garage door opener rumbled from outside. She was home. I snapped the laptop shut, slid it back exactly where she kept it, and walked out of the office before she came through the door. She stepped inside, smiling at something on her phone, purse slung over her arm. Hey babe, she said. I didn't answer. I just brushed past her, grabbed my truck keys off the counter, and headed for the door. I stepped past her and grabbed my keys off the counter. She reached out and caught my arm. Where are you going? She asked, eyebrows tight. Away from this house for a minute, I said. Before I say something, you'll pretend not to understand. She followed me into the kitchen, blocking the doorway like she owned every square foot between us. What's going on with you? I stared at her. Open your laptop, and you'll know. Her face went stiff. Not scared, calculated. What did you do? I saw your private folder. She sucked in a sharp breath. You went through my stuff? That's what you're worried about? You had no right to dig through my files. She planted her hands on her hips. That's a violation, Nate. I let out a bitter laugh. A violation? You and Landon playing boyfriend and girlfriend behind my back isn't a violation? Her voice rose quick. I never cheated. Did you read those messages? I shot back. Because I did. She shook her head fast, like she could outrun the truth. You're twisting things. Those were private conversations. Emotional support. That's all. Emotional support doesn't usually come with cabin weekends, I said. Or the line, maybe it still can be. Her eyes flashed. You're taking things out of context. Really? I stepped closer. Then explain the photos. Explain the late night messages. Explain why you were telling him your life would be different if you'd met him first. She froze for a second. Then she doubled down. You had no business snooping. You pushed me to talk to someone else because you shut down. You made this bed, Nate. My hands curled at my sides. You lied to me. You weren't giving me what I needed. She snapped. And instead of trying to work on that, you go spying like some controlling husband. She pointed a finger at me. You're the one who broke trust. I barked a laugh. Unbelievable. She didn't blink, didn't flinch. She actually believed what she was saying. Then she delivered the line that near stopped my heart. You owe Landon an apology. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. You cannot be serious. She folded her arms. I'm dead serious. You've treated him like crap for months. You've made him feel unwelcome in our life. If you want this marriage to work, you need to own that. Our life? I repeated. Or yours and his? You're being dramatic, she said. He's important to me. I shouldn't have to hide that. You didn't hide it, I said. You documented it. She took a step closer, voice low and sharp. If you want to fix this, you need to apologize. To him, for how you've acted. I looked at her like she was a stranger standing in my kitchen wearing my wife's face. You're telling me, I said slowly, that I should apologize to the guy you've been having a full-on emotional affair with? She lifted her chin. Yes. Fine, I said. She blinked. Fine. I'll apologize, I said, if that's what it takes to make things right. She relaxed instantly, like she'd won something. Good, she said, because you need to show him you respect our friendship. I forced a nod. Sure. She turned away, reaching for her phone, already drafting the narrative she'd feed him. How she handled it. How I was finally trying. She had no idea what I was actually planning. Next morning over coffee, I looked her dead in the eye and said, I'll do it. I'll apologize. She lit up like I'd handed her a trophy. I'm proud of you, she said. This is a big step. I didn't blink. But I want Jenna there too. If I'm apologizing, it should be in front of both of them. Mallory paused, caught off guard for a split second. Then she smiled. Even better, that shows real maturity. For the next 2 days, she treated me like I was finally learning something. Walked me through how Landon felt unseen. How Jenna might be sensitive. How I should phrase things to avoid sounding defensive. I nodded, took notes, asked questions like I cared. And every night after she went to bed, I was in the garage, scanning receipts, copying screenshots, and stacking evidence like I was building a case file. By Friday, I had the USB drive ready, tucked it into my glove box like a loaded gun. That same afternoon, I called Jenna. She picked up fast. Hey, it's Nate. I need to talk to you. It's about Mallory and Landon. She went quiet. What's going on? I can't tell you everything yet, but I need you there tomorrow. Trust me, she said. I'll be there. Saturday came. Mallory dressed like she was going to brunch. Hair done, soft makeup, new blouse she bought last month on our credit card. She brought a bottle of wine as a peace offering, some fancy red she said Jenna liked. I didn't bring wine. I brought the truth. The drive over was quiet, but Mallory had this lightness to her, humming along to the radio, legs crossed like she didn't have a care in the world, like she'd just cleaned up another emotional mess and the worst of it was behind us. We pulled into Landon and Jenna's driveway, right at 2, big 2-story house in a cul-de-sac. American flag on the porch. Looked perfect on the outside, just like us once. Mallory knocked, and Jenna opened the door fast. No smile, no greeting, just a firm nod. Landon stood behind her, trying to act casual, but his eyes darted between us like something was already off. Thanks for having us, Mallory said, lifting the wine. Jenna stepped aside. Come in. We walked into the living room. Mallory reached for the couch like it was her spot. Like this was just another friendly visit. She glanced at me. You ready? I nodded once. She turned to Jenna and Landon, all calm and collected. Nate has something he wants to say. Jenna didn't sit. She crossed her arms and stared at me. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the USB, held it up like a key to the truth. I do. Mallory smiled at them like she was hosting a seminar. I just want to say, she started, placing the wine gently on the coffee table. I'm really proud of Nate for being open to this. It's not easy to admit when you've been wrong, but he's made real progress, and I'm proud to stand by him while he clears the air today. She looked at me like it was my turn to bow. I let a beat of silence stretch before I moved. Then I pulled the USB from my jacket pocket and held it out. Not to Landon, to Jenna. Her eyes narrowed as she took it from my hand. What's this? I looked at her, not Mallory. It's what your husband and my wife have been doing behind our backs for the last few months. Landon's whole body tensed. He blinked like he didn't understand English. Mallory's smile dropped off her face like a light bulb popping. Nate, she said, low and sharp. What the hell are you doing? I ignored her. Inside that drive, I told Jenna, you'll find screenshots of texts, photos, receipts. The messages start off friendly, then they turn into confessions, then jokes about sneaking around, then full-blown plans. Jenna hadn't moved. Her eyes were locked on Landon now. Is this true? He stammered. Hold on. This is being blown way out of... I cut him off. I wasn't done yet. I'll read you a few highlights, just in case anyone wants to pretend this is nothing. I pulled the printed pages from my back pocket, unfolded them slow, and started reading. Mallory lunged forward. Nate, stop! I didn't even look at her. Her voice snapped. This is private. I turned finally. You demanded an apology. You coached me on it. You wanted honesty? Here it is. She sat back, stunned. I looked down at the printout and read loud, clear, with every word slicing the air. If I'd met you first, my life would be different. Her words. Mallory hissed. This is out of context. I read another. Maybe it still can be. That was Landon's reply. Jenna's breathing turned shaky. I read the next one. I love how you understand me better than anyone. Landon's hands were clenched. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Oh, here's a good one, I said. I wish I could tell people about us, but we'd hurt too many. That was yours, Landon. Jenna gasped softly. I could feel her shaking. Still not done. I kept my voice calm, deliberate. She told me she was going on a work trip that weekend in October, cab and rental, paid in full with our joint account. Her and Landon alone for 3 days. Mallory stood. That's enough. No, I said, meeting her eyes. It's not. You wanted me to apologize to him. So here it is. I looked back at Landon. I'm sorry I ever trusted either of you. Jenna sat down slowly, like her legs had given out. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't make a sound. Landon reached for her. Jen, baby, listen, it wasn't like that. She jerked away. Don't touch me. Mallory stepped between them, panicking now. We didn't sleep together. That never happened. You're both acting like this is something it's not. I turned to her, steady and cold. You don't get to decide what it is. Not anymore. She snapped her head toward me. You ambushed me. You blindsided Jenna. You planned this. Damn right I did. Her mouth opened to argue again, but I was already done. I looked at Jenna one more time. If you want help going through that drive, I'll walk you through every file. Just say the word. Jenna didn't answer. She just held the USB tight in her hand like it was radioactive. Landon stood there speechless, red-faced, breathing hard like he was the one who'd been betrayed. Mallory stormed toward me. You smug son of a bitch, she said under her breath. You think this makes you some kind of hero? No, I said. It makes me free. And with that, I walked out their front door and left the wreckage behind me. I didn't sleep that night, not even close. When Mallory finally came home, it was after midnight. She stepped inside, heels clicking on the floor, trying to act like it was just another day. Her eyes were still wide, still full of that desperate need to justify herself. She closed the door behind her and took a deep breath, like she was preparing for a speech. Then, without even looking at me, she said, You know, you're making way too big a deal out of this. It's an overreaction. Nothing physical happened, I swear. I didn't blink. No, I said. It's not an overreaction. You lied to me for months. You and Landon both. It's betrayal. And I'm done. Her head snapped up. What are you talking about? I told you we were just close friends. You told me a lot of things, I said, voice low. None of them were true. She stood there, trembling, trying to find something to say, but the words never came. "I'm done, Mallory," I said again. "It's over." The silence hung in the air. Neither of us moved for a long moment. I could feel the weight of the years we'd spent together. The moments I'd thought were real. None of it mattered anymore. I moved out the next week. No drama. I packed my stuff, left the house, and went to a small place near the shop. It was cleaner than I expected, smaller than I needed, but it felt like freedom. A week later, I filed for divorce. It took a month. Neither of us fought it. Neither of us tried to make the other feel bad about it. We'd both been living separate lives long before the truth came out. Jenna emailed me a couple of weeks after the dust had settled. The email was simple, but it cut deep. "Thank you for showing me the truth," she wrote. "I don't know how to process everything, but it's freeing. I can't go back to what we were, but I feel like I can move forward for once. Thank you." I read it over and over. It was hard to explain, but in a way, it gave me some kind of peace. I didn't want to be the guy who burned everything to the ground, but sometimes the truth had to come out, even if it hurt. Mallory and Landon didn't last long. I heard through mutual friends that they tried dating openly for a couple of months, but their magic couldn't survive the daylight. Once all the secrets were laid bare, the shine wore off. They both crumbled, fast. Last I heard, Landon moved out of state. Mallory sold the house. She didn't need the reminder of what she'd lost. I kept the dog. Fair trade. 6 months after the dust settled, I was back on my feet. It wasn't a smooth ride. It wasn't all easy, but I was moving. The shop was doing well, steady work. I rented a small place, a single-story bungalow that smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Quiet, comfortable. I started going to the gym again, lifting weights the way I used to before life got heavy. I dropped the beer gut, got back some of the muscle tone I'd let slip. My body felt like it was remembering who it was before the mess of Mallory and Landon and everything that came after. In the months that followed, Jenna and I stayed in touch. No drama, no pressure, just the occasional check-in. She'd send a text every now and then, asking how the shop was going. I'd tell her about a new part I'd installed or a tricky engine fix. It was simple, just two people moving on from the wreckage, trying to find a little peace. One day, she came by the shop for a tire rotation. I didn't think much of it, just a friendly visit, nothing more. But we talked for a while after the work was done. She joked about how I was still the same when it came to cars. Always with the greasy hands, always with the crazy attention to detail. She'd laugh like nothing had ever happened, like we hadn't both been through the fire and come out burned but still breathing. It was easy, natural. So we started grabbing coffee once a week. Nothing serious. Just two people who had walked through the wreckage, figured out who they were apart from the lies, and decided maybe it wasn't so bad to start over. Then one day, out of nowhere, she said it. We were the consolation prizes, you know? She looked at me with those tired eyes that had seen too much, but somehow still managed to be warm. I stopped, sipping my coffee, and let it hang in the air for a moment. I knew exactly what she meant, that we were the second choice. That after all the secrets and mess, she and I were the ones who were left standing when the dust settled. But that wasn't how I felt anymore. I leaned back in my chair, set the mug down, and met her gaze. Not anymore. She froze for a second, then let out a small breath. The kind of smile that had been missing for so long started to tug at her lips. It was hesitant at first, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to smile. But then it spread, and it was one of those real smiles. The kind that felt like the sun breaking through clouds. The kind I hadn't seen in years. We were figuring it out, her and me. There was no rush, no checklist of milestones, no pressure to make it work or force something that wasn't there. We took it slow, and I liked it that way. We spent time together, talking about things that mattered now. Not the ghosts of old marriages or people who had no place in our lives anymore. There was honesty. There were no games. One day, after a quiet evening at a dive bar, I turned to her and said, "You ever thought about what happens next?" She raised an eyebrow, but the smile was still there. "I'm thinking about it. What about you?" I didn't have an answer, not one that was perfect, but I knew I was in a place where I could choose my path again. No lies, no pretending, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was the first relationship I'd had that started with the truth instead of lies.